In this video, I am going to investigate the Ghostbusters War between the fighting pacifists and the Haunted Mansion bloc. This is mostly political speculation, so consider me a somewhat biased source and contrast my perspective with that of other speculators for a more accurate perspective. Or don't. Their podcasts are really long, and I'm awesome. Participants. As I said initially, this war is between the fighting pacifists and Haunted Mansion. On the TFP side are their allies Waffle House, Dark Brotherhood, and Thunderstruck. Supporting them are the Mercenary or Bandit alliances, the Fear, and Islamic Crusade. In the other corner we have Haunted Mansion and its member alliances and protectorates, so United Purple Nations, Farkistan, the Federation, United Socialist Nations, Polaris, and UPN's Protectorate, Sanctuary. Here's a tiering graph. As you can see, TFP and its allies have the advantage, but it's fairly close. It's probably the closest war we've had in a very long time. The Casus Belli. What is the justification for war? Unfortunately, there is no official reason for this conflict. Fortunately, I know both parties well and I can speculate on their motivations. The fighting pacifists is the aggressor. That is an undisputed fact, and Haunted Mansion is composed of their former allies that refuse to continue working with them. The fighting pacifists are a more ambitious organization than Haunted Mansion. Both were cast out of the major spheres, but TFP was dissatisfied by this and seeks to become the strongest alliance in the game. Haunted Mansion's member alliances are not interested in becoming the strongest alliances in the game. They just want to survive and coexist peacefully. Lower tier Hegemony. They wouldn't be at odds, but for the fact they are both in the lower tier. The lower tier is routinely exploited by the larger alliances and considered politically irrelevant. TFP recognizes what I do as well, that the lower tier is the pipeline to the upper tier, and controlling it would cost very little and lead to a huge reward. It is my belief that TFP wants to establish a lower tier hegemony. Haunted Mansion is independent and thus standing in the way of their hegemony. I know this was all discussed a few months ago, so I'm inclined to believe that's still their ambition. I might be wrong, but I implore people to do their own research, since there will be some underlying motivation for this war, beyond just restoring their alliance's military reputation, which is the stated goal by their allies, Mercenaries. For the past few months, Mercenaries have been attacking allies of the fighting pacifists and all the members of Haunted Mansion, so it's not surprising people were confused when the Mercenaries sided with the fighting pacifists in this war. Haunted Mansion alleges they were paid to participate in the war, and I'm somewhat inclined to believe them, despite the adamant refusal by TFP and the Fear. This is my logic. The fighting pacifists is the alliance least capable of hiring mercenaries. They run low taxes and most of their income is derived from trading and investing. Despite the economic hesitancy, they have said they have no complaints with people hiring mercenaries. That leads me to conclude that TFP would hire mercenaries, but that they would need to pay them with their members' savings. And since their members are pacifists, this would lead to a huge backlash. I think it's very pragmatic for them to hire mercenaries, but to deny it. As for the Fear, perhaps they were paid to deny it. But even if they weren't paid to deny it, or even to participate in the war, they have an interest in denying it. By simply nodding their head and sounding a little bit suspicious, we all think they got paid a premium for helping TFP. And when next someone wants to hire them, the price will be as high as the rumors. And if we know anything about rumors, they get wilder and wilder with each retelling. So there are arguments for both sides of the mercenary debate. Haunted Mansion's decision to denounce TFP for hiring mercenaries is inherently very strange. I don't think the other major alliances really consider mercenaries as evil, and the most prominent alliances in Haunted Mansion have employed or acted as mercenaries themselves at times. Prelude to War. Should I talk about the rumors? Might as well. So, a series of leaks and a lot of speculation led to TFP's entire war plan being revealed a week in advance. Everyone knew what was going to happen, there was just no confirmation. Considering that, then Haunted Mansion had ample time to prepare and preemptively strike to increase their odds of winning. And most people believed that whoever struck first would win, since the sides were so evenly matched. Haunted Mansion was also aware of the many secret mercenary agreements, at least with Fear, not necessarily Islamic. Haunted Mansion and TFP both saw more allies, but the distinction between their strategies was that Haunted Mansion only considered a defensive war. They completely ruled out offensive action, as far as I'm aware, and in so doing, guaranteed they'd lose this war. That and Haunted Mansion also had the opportunity and the capital to buy mercenaries of their own, and they neglected to. though one point in Haunted Mansion's favor is that all their allies were willing to fight this war. By comparison, TFP cancelled its treaties with Soldiers of Liberty and Federated States of Orbis, and there are rumors that their other allies didn't want this war either. All those allies adamantly claim that they did want to fight this war now, so take the rumors with a grain of salt. All this information and bartering occurred before TFP militarized, and when they did, it was much slower than expected. By comparison, Haunted Mansion could militarize quite quickly, but for some reason, they waited a day or two. One explanation, provided on a radio show, was that Haunted Mansion thought all the information they had might have been some conspiracy to start a war when neither of them wanted one. I don't believe that. There was so much information they received, from dozens of sources, and everyone I heard from that sphere knew this war was coming. Blitz and Net damage. On the 20th of March, TFP blitzed Haunted Mansion and devastated them. People initially thought that Haunted Mansion might put up a fight, since they were dealing a lot of damage, but it wasn't enough. TFP and its allies lost tens of billions in the first 24 hours, and some of the least capable alliances in Haunted Mansion, I'm looking at you Polaris, looked like demigods for the first time in a decade. But it was not to last, and TFP's damage output soon outweighed their losses. The explanation for the initially strange stats was that TFP had more expensive infrastructure. Even if they lost a tiny amount of it in the battles, the cost was huge. Whereas all the damage that the rest of Haunted Mansion took was unit damage. They lost their ability to defend themselves. Counterattack. The title is a bit of a misnomer because there was no counterattack. TFP decided to give their opponents beige time that could be used to rebuild units and potentially flip the war back in Haunted Mansion's favor. For whatever reason, Haunted Mansion decided not to coordinate a proper counterattack. We saw a bunch of people launch small and random attacks, but there was never going to be enough to change the tide. And they really did have a chance. Not only did TFP give them the beige time, but they were also slow to rebuild units. TFP dropped from 160k planes to 120k around the time of the expected counterattack. And TFP was the primary threat. The other members of their coalition, whilst very successful in their own right, paled by comparison. Just look at the wars declared. Victory. TFP has already won the war. Both parties are just dragging it out a week or two to prove they're as capable as the larger spheres. A lot of people expect this war to end without TFP imposing terms on Haunted Mansion, but I'm not so sure. There's been a lot of talk lately about punishing peace terms being used to spice up politics. I could totally see Haunted Mansion being compelled to change their flags, make statements, and potentially become an uneasy ally, sort of like a puppet state. Regardless of the peace terms, there are two other outcomes which are equally possible. Haunted Mansion could disband, and the member alliances could seek refuge in the other major spheres. Or, and I think this is more interesting, Haunted Mansion could try and get more allies and fight a revenge war in a few months. Conclusion. At the end of the day, at the end of this video, this is a very interesting conflict. We don't have big wars in the low tier. This is unprecedented and profound. It could mean so much for the game's new players. It could help solve the retention problem. Almost 90% or more players quit. There are hundreds of thousands of nation IDs and less than 10,000 people that log in each week. When you don't have a story to participate in, when you don't have meaningful impact in a social game, you quit. These types of wars, if they have well-defined stories, could provide that meaning and keep people playing. This is my first venture into pure political speculation, so if you like this type of content, then like, subscribe, leave a comment saying you do. If you don't, then leave a comment saying that too, and I will venture back into my normal type of content. Cool. Hope people found it interesting.